Here we are with the relatively unknown Phil Walker Harding.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Welcome to Tabletop Nights. I was trying to think of all your games that you've designed, and it's like trying to recite pi. It's unbelievable. You know, I personally own Super Mega Lucky Box, Imhotep, Monolith, Sushi Go. Oh, help me out. There's about 300 others.
Gizmos, Baron Parks,
Baron Parks is a great one.
Silver and Gold.
Silver and Gold. I don't own that one. If I own a board game shop, they're all in there.
Okay.
I get people go, have you got a good family game? And I go to the Phil Walker Harding section. Honestly, fantastic. Thanks for joining us. You're showing Spellbook today from Space Cowboys. Is this your latest design?
Yeah, so this is being launched right now over in Essen in Germany and here at PAX. So Australia gets a nice little inclusion in the launch, which is nice. But yeah, so this is my newest game. It's kind of a rummy set collection game meets an engine building game.
Right.
So every time you make a set of the same color, you learn a new spell, which gives you a power for the rest of the game. So a little bit like Gizmos in that as you play, you're getting better and better and better at what you do.
Excellent. So that builds up. Obviously, the components look pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Is this the standard edition with these?
Yeah. So when I pitched the game to Space Cowboys, it was a card game only.
Right.
But they love their fancy bits at Space Cowboys. So the cards got replaced with these kind of really cool acrylic tokens for the spells. So as the game goes on, you're collecting these and then spending them to learn these spells in front of you.
Excellent.
So everyone has the same 7 spells, but they could be learned at 3 different levels based on how big the set is when you make it. So for example, this spell increases your ability to draw tokens quickly.
Yep.
So if I learnt this at level 3, I'd have to spend 3 red tokens. But then for the rest of the game, I can spend any token with a circle on it to draw 4. So I suddenly have this really sped up way of getting tokens.
Excellent. And how do you win this game?
So you win if you have the most points. You score points from learning spells. So the higher the level, the more victory points you earn. But you can also cash in your tokens and give them to your familiar. And every token you put on here is going to earn you points as well.
Excellent.
So the game ends when someone fills this up or someone learns 7 spells. You finish the round, then count up points. So there's kind of 2 vectors you can pursue. You can either like spam this and try and get points here, or you can try and learn all the spells and get points there.
Okay. So this sort of fits into the slightly above the junior family games, which we have come to know and to expect from you a little bit, I suppose, in the past. So a little bit more strategy, a little bit more planning ahead, thinking.
Yep. Yeah, so the game comes with 21 spells at 3 kind of difficulty levels. So these spells are the level 1. And I'd say you could definitely play this with sort of 8 to 10-year-olds, no problem. But then if you try level 2 or level 3, it's a little bit more to think about, some more combos to find, and it gets a little bit more for gamers. But yeah, so at its basic, it's pretty easy game, but it's probably closer to a game like Gizmos that I've designed. It's a little bit above.
That's definitely one of the more complex ones.
That's
sure.
right, yeah.
Excellent. So a couple of questions. What got you started into designing board games? Like me, I don't know. I only ever had the Monopoly board while the parents had the Mahjong, so I hate Monopoly pathologically. Did you have like an early introduction to gaming?
Yeah, so when I was little, we played lots of Monopoly.
Yep.
But lots of American mass market games we had at home. So things like Mousetrap, Battleship, Operation, Connect 4. So I loved all those games as a kid. But like a lot of kids, kind of grew out of it a bit. And from like the age of 10, way more into video games, you know.
Yeah.
But then at university, discovered the new games coming out of Germany. And was like, oh, board games are actually cool.
Yeah. More than one way to win.
Yeah. Ways to think ahead and plan and strategize. Less crazy luck, more ability to kind of have a bit of player agency. All those things that games like Catan and Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride brought. And from that point on, I was kind of just hooked. And so I started designing straight away. But just as a hobby, this is a
Yeah.
really fun thing I was doing on the side, making my own games, learning from those new titles. And I self-published a couple of games, just handmade, 50 copies,
Yeah.
really, really basic. And then slowly had publishers pick up a couple of them and get sort of slightly wider distribution on them.
Was it Sushi Go that sort of kicked that off? Or?
So no, before Sushi Go, so the very first game I did was Archaeology,
Yeah,
and
the
Archaeology,
card
the card game,
game.
was
Yeah, yeah.
picked up by Z-Man.
Yeah.
I self-published a couple of titles, and then Sushi Go I self-published in 2013.
Yeah.
But then Gamewright picked it up, and then that was the really big step up for me, because Gamewright just marketed that game so well
Yeah.
that all of a sudden I had like regular royalties coming in, and I could start thinking more carefully about building a career. So that from that point on, it just slowly grew.
So obviously now it's a full-time job, and you're a big collaborator with lots of designers from all around the world. Do you go there and collaborate, or do you stay here and collaborate? What do you do?
No, so actually all of my collaborations, I mean, living in Australia is kind of tough as a designer because so much of the industry is in the US and Europe. But
Where our viewers are.
yeah,
We have no Australian viewers; they're all overseas.
well, that's the funny thing about the board game industry. But Australia is definitely growing. But most designers like collaborating online. So it's quite easy to have a few Zoom chats to get going. You can build a prototype in Tabletop Simulator and play remotely. But I will say, like, meeting and hashing out a game together is way more efficient
Yeah.
and productive in a lot of ways. So Matt Dunstan, someone I've designed with a lot, who's here right now.
Yeah, we just met him.
Yeah, but he lived in Europe for a long time. But we'd get way more done when he would fly out here and we'd hang out. So it's a bit of both. But just by the nature of living here, a lot of it is remote.
So your games are very streamlined. That's what I love about them. I can say, here's a 7-year-old, there's Super Mega Lucky Box, you know how to play bingo? Yeah, just do this bit. And there's no faff. How much time do you spend cleaning it up at the end, I suppose? Or is it from the very beginning?
Yeah, it's funny. My brain seems to cut out the faff as I design.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's just something I learnt or that developed in my own style, but as I'm designing a game, I find myself very rigidly cutting off all extraneous detail as I go. So even with Spellbook, for a long time, the tokens, there was no, so all the tokens have a color and a shape. And for a long time, they were just a color.
Yeah.
But the design space in the game was so small. All I had was 7 colors. That's it to work with.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed one more thing in the game, so I added shapes to each color, which suddenly opens up all the things the spells can do. But I remember making that decision. Part of me was like, no, do not add anything extra. The game is just colors, just colors. But in this case, I did need to open up the design space. But I'm always kind of trying to minimize extraneous detail as I go. So usually the problem isn't having to clean it up at the end. The problem is when I start, everything's so narrow, there's so little moving parts to work with.
Yeah.
So, whereas I think a lot of other designers I speak to, they start with a lot and then kind of whittle it down.
Have you ever felt like you were too constrained and wanted to open it up a bit?
Yeah. It's funny. It's like I suppose it's a good problem to have, but sometimes I try, I'd love to design a more complex kind of game again at some point in my career. But every time I try, I'm too rigid with my own kind of little rules about simplicity and elegance that I find it hard to open up the space in a design. That's not a skill I have.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other designers are great at okay, I've got this system and this system and this system. Let's add another system. And
Ignasi. He just go bang.
That's
There's
right.
800 systems.
That's right. But that's not kind of my skill.
Yeah.
But something I'd like to learn.
Does that affect your home life, your rigidity, or your narrow focus?
I would like to think that's something I only bring to the game design part of my life. No, it doesn't really fit with the rest of my personality in a lot of ways, but I think it's a commitment to knowing my audience quite well, and then sort of going, like you say, I'd love the idea that you could teach Super Mega Lucky Box to a 7-year-old in 2 minutes. That's something I'm aiming for. And so having that as such a high priority is probably the reason I'm so much of a stickler.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So then where does Joey Games fit into this ethos?
Well, Joey Games,
Like, it's very simplified look.
that's right.
The palette's very limited.
Yeah, I think maybe I guess I'm a bit of a minimalist when it comes to games, and I think starting up Joey Games was a chance for me and Meredith to kind of really dig into that and see, can we make a line of games that look and play in this simple but kind of colorful and exciting kind of way.
Yeah.
So making a line of games that even younger people than normal for my games could play was a really cool challenge. And that's what we want to keep doing with Joey.
Yeah.
So I'll keep, like, games like Spellbook are obviously too complex. And so I'll keep working with all the other publishers I know around the world, which is cool. But if I have a design that kind of fits that kind of early primary school age, then trying to think of it as a Joey product will be a really fun kind of part of my career going forward.
And does Meredith have the same passion as you? What's her connection to gaming? Because, like, my partner, Donna, she'll play your games, but very few others. Because she knows this is what I get. I can learn the rules quickly. I'm not into all the other stuff. Is Meredith a gamer or?
Well, so yes, however, being married to a designer and being a designer, in a weird way, when it becomes work, you play less.
Yep.
So when I first met Meredith, we played lots of different games together. She was a big Catan player at university. But the more I've gotten into design and used her as one of my, constant play testers, because she's always there, the more it's weird, the more we find we don't play games for pleasure.
Yeah.
Which is kind of this sad thing about...
We have the same thing on the channel. Victor and I will play a game and go, you almost forget what the love of the game is because you're explaining it or you don't want to try and win. You're actually too busy just inviting other people into the space.
That's right. So, I mean, we obviously play a lot of games, but when we play just ourselves, I usually find we are really simple as well because we just want a relaxing, simple game we can just jump into. And we're not so much like, where's the latest 90-minute Euro we can burn our brains with? Because that's kind of what we do for work. We burn our brains as we are making a game. So,
Fantastic. Well, look, thanks so much for your time, Phil. Great to see you. Looking forward to having a go with Spellbook. We might come back later and have a game. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed Phil Walker-Harding. Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure you follow the Tabletop Knights, subscribe, and here's a previous video for you.